So I've been teaching Qi Gong this morning. My body feels very relaxed, like someone's oiled every joint with a spray of WD-40. So it feels spacious, it's nice to breathe, and I thought I'd do nothing and be no one. So we waste a lot of our time constantly trying to achieve things, and trying to achieve things in spirituality is kind of a bit of a joke in some ways. You see, the real point of spirituality is emptiness and nothingness. And to do that, we have to let go of somethingness and thingness and all the concepts and ideas that we have about things. So, the art of doing nothing. I must admit, being in a hammock, looking over a beach in India and watching the ocean all day was when I first got to grips with this practice. So, it's quite impossible to just sit and say, okay, I'm not going to have any thoughts. Unless you've been practicing in the right kind of way for some time. I can just sit, give myself half an hour on the alarm clock, so a bell's going to ring in half an hour. Don't worry, you don't have to sit and listen to me drone on about nothing for half an hour, I'll spare you that. But I'll just tell you how I get into the process then. So, I'm going to do nothing and be no one. It's not very interesting, so I'll have to tell you what's going on. Okay. So using my awareness then, and being just aware of everything that's going on. So in the beginning, maybe you're going to be lost in your mind. That's perfectly normal, and it's an affliction that most people have. So can you be just simply aware that you're lost in your mind? And maybe you've got a really irritating song in your head. I've got a ball here, Pepper the Pig. I've now got the Pepper the Pig theme tune going on in my head, and I'm sorry if that's going to disturb your meditation for the rest of the week. And every time you sit down, it's Pepper Pig going round in your head. It could be worse. So, let's say you are troubled then by repetitive thoughts, for example, the Peppa Pig theme tune. You've just got to accept that it's there really and surrender to it, because if you try and drive it away, you'll build up more resistance and your mind will play with you that bit more. So there's times when I've been meditating, I've had tunes even more irritating than Peppa Pig, and I won't name them because it'll be in your head, a bit like Lawnmower Man. So if we try to fight that, we develop resistance and tension and impatience because we've expected something from our practice. So the way to go into a practice then of the like that we're doing now is to have no expectations. And there's no good or bad practice, there's simply being aware of whatever arises is the practice. So if that is the Pepper the Pig theme tune for the next half an hour, then so be it. Or if it's a pain in your knee or something that's bothering you, then just simply be aware of it and keep coming back and telling yourself and observing what's going on. And eventually the mind will get bored of that particular loop and it'll come undone, and then it'll annoy you with something else possibly. The mind has these games that it likes to play because it doesn't really want to be controlled or tamed in any way. It's kind of had its own way for most of its life. So when you start trying to ignore the mind, like a naughty little child, it starts playing up because it wants your attention. And if it can get you angry at yourself, then it's kind of won, because it's taking your energy in one way or another. Or if you're really happy with yourself, then it's taking your energy another way, because you'll start praising yourself and patting yourself on the back. The ego has so many ways of getting in and stealing the energy that we've just brought about from our practice. So doing nothing and being no one. So after years of practice, then, for me it's quite simple. I just sit here and I don't hold my attention anywhere. So I've let go of needing to do mantras. I've let go of needing to visualize. I've let go of needing to breathe in certain ways. So I've let go of breathing and screaming, as some of my teachers would call it, and simply sat with my palms up, because that opens my body, not for any real spiritual significance. And I've got my spine straight, so I'm comfortable. So I'm drawn to my ears. I'll label the sounds for you. I stopped doing that years ago. I can listen to a sound without naming it. So obviously there's birds, pigeons, bees, wasps. If I look around, there's a very gentle breeze, and the grass is moving around in the breeze. It's quite pleasant. It's also scorchingly hot, and I'm aware of my skin. There's one tiny little cloud floating across the sky. It's a beautiful day. There's the moon. So, what happens then when we look at things and we name it? We're sort of grabbing onto something, and then we'll name it, and then we'll make words about it. So what to do then is just observe yourself doing that. Observe the story. So I'm making a story about the wind now. I can feel the wind on my skin. It's a nice breeze. It's a very gentle breeze. Story, story, story. Just drop that. Use my eyes. A story's beginning to form about the leaves, and I'm starting to name things after a while. Now I'm in my nose. Smelling. A bee flew past my ear, and before I could start naming the smells, my attention was drawn to my ears, and now it's bounced to my skin. And so as I relax into the process, my attention will just start to move around to whatever is the loudest. It may be a sensation of burning, or a sound, or a taste, or a physical sensation, or something suddenly moving. And I just allow my attention to do whatever it wants, but I'm aware of what my attention is doing. So I'm watching where my attention is going. And as soon as a concept begins to form, I become aware of the fact that I'm having a dialogue, and I'll drop it and just move, look, something, be aware of something else. So in the beginning you'll struggle, but if you have some degree of concentration or some degree of presence, you'll be able to get the most benefit out of this practice. If you set yourself a timer for say half an hour and then hide the clock so you're not looking at it, rude awakening, suddenly an alarm will ring. And then you won't be bothered about time. And with practice, you'll begin to lose track of time. So, also, you might get bored as well. So leave the phone in the house. Don't have any books or notepads or pens. Nothing to fiddle with. And no distractions. Maybe switch the phone off. And then sit and be for half an hour. You might find that you start daydreaming or having visual fantasies. Okay, just become aware that you're doing that, and like letting go of the ball, drop it, and move somewhere else. And every time mental images, concepts, ideas, or emotions arise, let go and just be aware of something else. So it's a practice of freedom. We're practicing freeing the mind from the need to do anything. And you may encounter a timeless state, which is the exact opposite of boredom. So for most people, to sit on the bench and do absolutely nothing for half an hour could be a form of torture, because their mind would get bored, or all the things that they're suppressing start to arise. If that's happening, just acknowledge, there's boredom, emotions, and try and let go and move on to something else. You see, all the spiritual practices that we're taught are always about achieving and doing. And for me, the deepest thing was just sitting by the beach and watching the ocean. And over a period of years, it made my mind become naturally very, very still. That's when I got into Qi Gong. And what I found, and one of the reasons why I got into teaching Qi Gong in the end, was that when I practiced Qi Gong, it would bring me very powerfully into the now. I found it an excellent way of accessing the moment without having to sit and look at the ocean. So, different people have different paths, and it doesn't always have to be very, very complicated. Sometimes the simplest practice can be the stepping stone into a state of beingness. And everybody wants to achieve things, and it seems that unfortunately the spiritual circus has become that way, with the people talking about achieving this and achieving that. And the real point of mysticism is to be empty and just be in a state of being. And if we look at all the breathing practices, and we're not dismissing these, and the energy practices, they're just one aspect of a tradition and one aspect of practice. So even within Qigong system, there is a practice called sitting like the Buddha. So we have to look at then what Buddha was doing. And Buddha was doing nothing. And being no one. And the way to do nothing and be no one is to simply just sit and allow whatever arises to arise, and observe dispassionately, drop it, and allow the next thing to arise. But the key to it all is being the observer, so just watching everything dance, move around, and not get stuck on one thing. Have a nice day.